Hi, my name is Murphy.
And my name is Nico.
And we are interviewing Kathleen Pelley, the author at Harris Bilingual Immersion School.
So now to get it started, what is your favorite book of all time?
That's a hard question to answer straight off. I'll give you a few. I love Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. I love also by Kate DiCamillo. I love The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane, and I love the other one that Kate DiCamillo did, not because of Book Winn-Dixie, but The Little Mouse. What was The Little Mouse called again? Desperado. I love that one. I love Angela's Ashes for adults. I love A Fine Balance for adults. And I love William Steig. I love Amos and Boris. I could go on, but I think you've got more questions for me, so I'll stop.
And what is your favorite book that you have written and why?
I think it's like saying to a mother, who is your favourite child? So what I will say is I love each one of my books for different reasons. So The Giant King was my first book, and I love it because it's about kindness, and it's about how children change the world, not grown-ups, with kindness. I love Inventor McGregor because that was my second book, and I love it because it was the most fun to write, because I got to think of all these funny inventions about making the world better and brighter for other people. I love Magnus Maximus because really it's about my husband, and my husband is this amazing measurer, and I don't like to measure, but I wonder why other people do, and so that's why I love that one. Raj the Bookstore Tiger is about a little cat who is transformed by the power of poetry and words, and so I love that, and I love reading aloud. And finally, The Sandal Artist was my last book, and I love that because it's about an artist, and one of my brothers is an artist, and I think artists show us how to see the world a little differently, and also it's about the power of walking in the world. And I love to walk, and when I came to America I missed not being able to walk as much as I could, so I kind of cheated, didn't I? But I told you that each one of my books is my favourite for different reasons.
Are some of your books about your childhood?
I suppose in many ways you could say each of them is, because as I was telling the children this morning when I did my presentations, a little bit of me creeps into every book I write. Even if I don't know that's happening, things that I loved. So The Giant King is a story set in Scotland, and it's about a giant. And as a little girl, I loved fairy tales and I loved stories about giants. Magnus Maximus, I suppose it's also set in Britain, although I don't say where it is, but we've got a queen in it and we've got the sea. So the scenery, I think, is very Scottish or English or Irish from Great Britain. Inventor McGregor is also set in Scotland, and we talk about the heather in it, and we talk about Scottish dancing. When I was a wee girl, that's what we did. And then The Sandal Artist, it's set in a country called Italy, but it's very much about what it's like to walk in the world. And as a wee girl growing up in Scotland, we didn't have a car, we walked everywhere. So yes, in many ways, each one of my books is definitely coloured by my childhood and how I lived as a child.
And have any authors inspired you, and why?
So many. Let me count them. C.S. Lewis wrote The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. And when I was a wee girl, I was 9, and my uncle gave me that. And you know what? I put it away and I didn't read it for weeks because I loved fairy tales, and I thought, I'd like to read a book about a lion and a witch, but a wardrobe. In Scotland, we don't have built-in closets like you do in America. We have wardrobes. And so when I was a wee girl, our wardrobe was in the hall, and my mother put all the clean laundry in there. And on Monday morning, when you're racing to get ready for school, you opened the wardrobe and all the clean laundry tumbled down. One Saturday, it must have rained, and I had nothing else to read. So I opened up The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Have you read it? Oh, how can you not fall in love with Narnia? Loved it, and Aslan and the whole story. So C.S. Lewis, I think, really affected me because he showed me that you need the ordinary wardrobe to get to Narnia. And J.K. Rowling did that with Harry Potter. You need the railway platform to get to Harry Potter land. And so to pick one author, I'd probably pick C.S. Lewis, because he showed me that the magic and mystery is all around us, but we need the ordinary to get there.
What books by other authors give you your ideas for your books?
I was talking to the children this morning, and not only do I write stories, but I love to tell stories, and I read fairy tales and folk tales from around the world at a little inner city school in Denver, and I've been doing that for 20 years. So I would have to say that most of those beautiful folk tales and fairy tales give me ideas. I mean, if I had to, I don't know that I could pick out one in particular, but maybe, when I was a little girl, I loved Oscar Wilde's The Selfish Giant. And maybe, who knows, maybe that influenced why I wrote a story about the giant king. And as regards nowadays, sometimes I might be at a loss for stories to write about. And if it's a good story and it's got beautiful language and it makes children want to love and live better, then it inspires me to want to write a story. So I'd say really great stories, no matter what they're about, inspire me because I think I want to write a beautiful story.
What motivates you to write a new book?
Love, something that I've loved in the world, or something that I wonder at. There's a beautiful poet, and she's Polish, and I think her name is Wisława Szymborska, and she won the Pulitzer Prize for poetry, the most wonderful prize in the world. And when I found out about her, I read a little bit of her poetry, and I read her acceptance speech when she got the prize. And you know what she said? She said, let me see if I can remember this, all poets, and I'd say picture book writers, if they are genuine, begin each poem or story by saying, I don't know. In other words, it's usually about some wonder in the world. So I think it's that sense of wonder, something that I don't know about, that always inspires me and makes me want to write a story.
Are there any books that are similar to the books that you write?
Well, I guess, The Giant King is a kind of a fable folktale-like story. And I think there's lots of folk tales, Scottish folk tales, and I suppose there's a few books about giants. There's lots and lots and lots and lots of picture books. I would say that the kind of picture books I write are more for the upper end of the picture book market, for 7, 8, 9-year-olds. So are there a lot of books like that? I think there used to be, but I think there's less now. I think more of the picture books now are for little children, which I'm sad about, because I think long ago, Hans Christian Andersen and the Brothers Grimm, they didn't write fairy tales for children, they wrote them for grown-ups. And so I think a good tale, a timeless tale, should be for people of all ages. I've kind of got off the subject there, but I'm really kind of saying, yes, I think there are some books like mine, but I think it's harder and harder to get them. Now publishing books that are more for younger children.
Did you always want to be an author when you were little?
No, but I always loved stories. So as I was chatting with children this morning, believe it or not, I wanted to be what Florence Nightingale was, the very first nurse. Because I studied history at university and I loved the stories of people from long ago, and I read all about Florence Nightingale, the lady with the lamp, and I thought, I want to be a nurse and I want to heal children, and I went off to become a children's nurse. And I hated it because I love children, but I don't like seeing them being sick. But I like to say to children nowadays, I am a kind of a nurse, because I think stories heal the hurts in our heart. So although I didn't always want to be a writer, I knew that I always loved stories and I believed in the power of stories. And so later on, I probably began to write stories when I came to America and I was very homesick. And that was the beginning of me writing books.
What advice would you give to someone who wants a book published?
Gosh, there's so much advice to give. The first thing would be to be patient. And the first thing would be to read and read lots and lots and lots of books like the type that you want to write. If you want to write a picture book, then you should be reading lots and lots of picture books. If you want to write a novel, you should be reading lots and lots of novels. But I think the other advice that I would give writers is, what do you love in the world? What do you love? And to focus on that as an act of sharing with other people, that it's not just about selling a ton of books, because you probably won't do that anyway. Will this writing of yours help you to love the world more, and will it bring more love and goodness into the world? I know that sounds kind of airy-fairy. My husband sometimes thinks I'm very airy-fairy because it's not giving you a direct answer. But I think I'd say to somebody who wants to write, why? And what do you love in the world? And what will you do when you have your book? Will you then go and write another book? And how will you share it with people? And how will it help you to love more?
Would you compare yourself to any other authors? And if yes, who and why?
That's a very tricky one. No, because I think all the authors that I love are just magnificent authors, and I couldn't possibly begin to compare myself to them, actually. So that's the short answer to that. Even although I have books published, I never stop learning about writing, and I've got a lot to learn.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. You've been wonderful interviewers. Thank you.